Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Swing Good Torah. So we're going to learn today about Parshah Shoftim. And it's an amazing mitzvahs. It's the mitzvahs of the Malachim, the mitzvahs of the kings. And we see that there's a mitzvah. When the Jewish people all return to Eretz Yisrael, when we all return to the land of Israel, we actually have a mitzvah to appoint a Jewish king. So the Jewish king, he's going to be chosen by Hashem's Nevi'im, his prophets, and by the Sanhedrin. And our Masorah, our tradition is that Eliyahu HaNavi, Elijah the prophet, is going to anoint Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. And we have a mitzvah to destroy Amalek. And if you ask who Amalek is, unfortunately we've seen them in the 20th century in World War II, and they are the Nazis. And they seem to adopt the Yamak Shemam, and they seem to have adopted the symbol of the swastika, so sometimes they are easy to identify who they are. And they'll come out of the woodworks when Mashiach comes. And B'ezrat Hashem, we can finally see the eradication of Amalek from the world. So we have a mitzvah to build the Beis HaMikdash, to build the temple. So we have a mitzvah to build the third temple. So then, the Rambam, he teaches us in Chilchos Malachim, in the Mishnah Torah, in the Yad Chazaka, he teaches us the halachas, the laws of the king. So his role, what is his mission? What is he supposed to do? So he's supposed to lead the nation, and he needs to fortify and elevate the Torah so that the Jewish people are fully governed by halacha. He needs to spread righteousness and justice in the world. He needs to subdue the wicked, to wage the wars of Hashem, and to judge the Jewish people. He's meant to hold his position, l'shem shamayim, performing all his functions for Hashem's sake. So to prevent him from misusing his high position for his personal aggrandizement, to make himself, glorified, it should be about glorifying Hashem. So the Torah has given him these mitzvahs that he can't do. So he shouldn't have too many horses, and he shouldn't marry more than the number of wives. He can't marry more than 18 wives. He can't amass a lot of wealth, and the only purpose of accumulating wealth is to pay for the army, to have an army to protect the Jewish people. And he's obligated to write a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll for himself. And he's required to read parts of the book of Devarim, Parshah Vayakhel, on every 7 years. Right, so let's see. So why this mitzvah of why should he not? Oh, I'm sorry. We're getting help today from the Midrash Says, excellent book by Rabbi Moshe Weissman, and just amazing translation and collection of Midrashim. So why should the king not have so many horses? So the non-Jewish kings, when they traveled, they would have a parade, and they would have a huge number of horses to impress the public. And the Torah allows the Jewish king only to keep those horses that he needs for his own chariot and the chariots for his army. And he's forbidden to keep in his possession additional horses just for his own pomp and pageantry. And one reason is that this lo ta'aseh, this prohibition, is the need to guard the king against gaiva, against arrogance, which leads him to turning away chas v'shalom from Hashem. So the Torah also gives another reason. In ancient times, horse breeding occurred mainly in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. So we see now, I think, Arabia, they're prized, the Arabian stallions, but Egypt at some time was praised for the best horses in the world. I don't know if there's still a lot of horse breeding going on in Egypt right now. So the Jews, the horses were done in Egypt, and then the horses were exported to other countries. So the Torah forbids a Jew to live in Egypt. So there's actually, I think, a mitzvah not to go back to Egypt. So thus, if the Jewish ruler were given free rein to buy as many horses as he desires, he would cause his people that work for him to commute and settle in Egypt, and then they would violate that mitzvah. So why can't the king marry more than 18 wives? So the non-Jewish kings in the ancient days, they used to have these large harems, but a Jewish king is forbidden to marry more than 18 wives. And it says that lest his heart, that his heart may be turned away from Hashem. So his job is to govern the community according to the Torah law, and not spend all his time indulging in physical pleasures. Let's see. So the next mitzvah is a king may not amass a great fortune. So the Torah prohibits a Jewish king from accumulating wealth to gratify his lust for money. And he's permitted he can store silver and gold for the country's benefit and security, but not for his own personal pleasure or glory. So the king has a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll. So this is really interesting. So it's actually a mitzvah for every Jewish man to write his own Sefer Torah, to write a Torah scroll for himself. But the Jewish king had another mitzvah to write a second Sefer Torah. And this one he would carry and study wherever he goes. And he kept the other Sefer Torah in his treasury. So the Jewish kings used to have it was a miniature Sefer Torah, which they attached to their right arm. So they put their right arms here, and they would always wear it. So when they were in the palace, or they were riding outdoors, or they were sitting in judgment in the Beis Din in the court, or they even went off to war, so they had a Sefer Torah on their right arm. So it says, how glorious the image of the ancient Jewish king, a Sefer Torah attached to his right arm, tefillin tied onto his left, and a tefillin crowning his head. So in ancient times, the Jews wore their tefillin all day, and to the outside world, the Jewish king represented Hashem's servant. So it looked like an Eved Hashem. So let's see. So the next mitzvah is, so it says that a king should be constantly occupied by a Sefer Torah in order to have it handy at every spare minute. Whenever free from the affairs of the state, he's obligated to study it. And the king, as a Torah scholar, as a Talmid Chacham and an observer of the mitzvahs, will be a righteous leader, a tzaddik, and a proper example for his subjects. So David Amalek, King David, he used to rise at midnight to study Torah, and he played on his harp and violin so the men of the city would hear his music and say, if David Amalek, if King David stays awake to study Torah, how much more should we? It's just an incredible example. And B'ezrat Hashem, we see the coming of Mashiach soon, a leader, a melech, to inspire us to learn more Torah. Let's see, so it says here, so why was Shaul, the first king was Saul? Why was Shaul chosen to become the first Jewish king? So among the other good qualities, the other good midos, he was extremely modest. He had a nava. So when Shaul and his servants had been absent from home for a long time in search of his father's female donkeys, Shaul mentioned, my father will worry about us, putting his servant on the same level as himself. So with genuine modesty, Shaul did not consider himself worthy of being chosen king, and he therefore concealed himself. However, having been accustomed to his royal position, Shaul changed. He became arrogant. He became gaivadik. And when he heard that David would succeed him, he persecuted David and all those that assisted him. And because of Shaul's pride, Hashem terminated his reign after only 2 years. Now David, on the other hand, remained humble, even when he was surrounded by wealth and glory. And it says of him in Tehillim, my heart is hollow, is humble within me. In Tehillim 109:22. And Hashem, my heart has not become gaivadik, and not become haughty, arrogant, nor my eye lofty. And it says in Tehillim 131:1, and the fear of God, it was always upon him. So the Torah emphasizes that it's vital for a king to be a tzaddik, he should be righteous, he should be free from avera, free from sin, that his heart not depart from Hashem. And since the king's heart is the inspiration for the whole nation, so the Shoftim, the tribe chosen, the Shevet chosen for eternal kingship, is the tribe of Yehuda. And even though Yehuda's kingship is suspended while we are in Gullus, while we are in exile, Hashem promised that he will restore it in the future through Mashiach ben David, the descendant of Yehuda. So the Rambam writes that if there will rise from David's house a king who will occupy himself with Torah mitzvos, involving both the Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, and the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah, like his father David, like his father David, who will restore the entire Jewish people to Torah observance, and we may assume that he is Mashiach. And if he will succeed in rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, and gathering in the exiles, he is certainly Mashiach. Mashiach will return the entire world to the path of emes, of truth, and cause all the nations to serve Hashem in harmony. So B'ezrat Hashem, may we soon see the coming of Mashiach. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great Shabbos, and I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.